You're watching Car Babble. I'm Ewan, and today's video is about the Hyundai i10, which I'm actually going to be producing from my Hyundai Santa Fe. Let me explain. So, my Santa Fe was going in for its first service, and it also had a few recalls to be done, so they were like, yeah, we're going to need it all day. Now, as much as I love to spend my day wandering around showrooms and stalking all the cars, I didn't think my work would really appreciate it if I was away all day, so I thought, I'm going to need a courtesy car. So when it comes to courtesy cars, I'm always hoping that dealerships are going to be playing the long game, and they're going to at least think about giving you a courtesy car that's remotely in the same ballpark of the sort of car that you drive, and therefore it might be something you might think about buying in the future. Well, Hyundai Aberdeen kind of missed the memo on this one. So I turn up and I go to see the girl. I'm like, oh, she's going to give me the keys to the Ioniq 6, the Ioniq 5, one of the new cool funky EVs. You know, I drive a plug-in hybrid, maybe my next car is going to be an EV. That would kind of make sense as a taster, you know. And she hands me the keys to this car. I'm like, these are really old school looking keys as well. I'm thinking, I don't think that's an EV. What is that exactly? And she's like, oh, that's the Hyundai i10. My face just drops. I'm like, I know exactly what that is. That is the smallest Hyundai that Hyundai makes. It is a city car, and it is probably smaller than an old school Mini. But I don't want to prejudge it, so I take the keys and I go outside thinking, it might not be as bad as I think, you know, maybe it's a little punchy engine, maybe it's all right inside. And going by the exterior of it, I'm thinking, this looks to be quite a basic spec, which she quickly confirmed it was. As soon as I drove off, I was like, I'm gonna have to make a video about this car, even though I don't have much time with it. So I got to do a wee bit of a test drive around the city, which is really all it's good for anyway. And then I parked it up, took some videos and some pictures and some notes about it before I handed it back. So it's not gonna be my usual production quality, but I'm gonna be able to pack in enough information to let you know that if you wanna buy the Hyundai i10, not to get it in this base spec, and why that is, and why the other specs make way more sense. So if you enjoy my videos, don't forget to like and subscribe. Otherwise, buckle up, let's get into it. So let's get the specs out of the way. This basic spec that I got was the SE, and you then get the SE Connect, and then you get the premium, and then you get the N line, which is the sporty version of the premium spec. Now we'll talk about the driving experience and the engines in a bit, but the difference in price between the base spec SE and the top N line spec is only about 3 grand, starting from 15.5 grand for the SE up to 18.5. So there's not a massive disparity in price, considering quite how hilariously better spec'd you can get the top spec one. So it's really important to know that the justification in terms of cost savings to go for this SE one really don't stack up anyway. But let's just get the absolute base things you get out of the way that the SE does actually have. You do get hill start assist, you do get cruise control, 6 airbags, whoop-de-doo, automatic emergency braking, lane keep assist, although it is not a button press, it is a hold downy button like all other Hyundais and this Santa Fe. And you have to switch it off if you don't like it every time you get in the car, which is really annoying. You also get forward collision warning and a driver attention warning as well. So it's got a few things there from the start, but that's it. What you do not get in the SC, like the other specs, is a reversing camera, and the most important thing is the infotainment system is different. So I just cannot believe that any car produced post 2020 has an infotainment system made at all that's this basic, particularly when the price difference between this and the SE Connect, which gets the bigger infotainment system with the touchscreen, is not that much. But I'm just trying to envisage them all sitting around the room in, you know, Hyundai's boardroom talking about this, and they've gone, right guys, we've got this really good infotainment system and all the specs are getting it, but see the SE customers, they're not getting it. This is a 4-inch Casio style screen that is not a touchscreen and has no functionality. You're definitely not getting Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with a screen like this. You do further up the range, but it is without doubt the most pathetic looking infotainment system I've seen in a long, long time. And I just can't believe it ever made it off the production line. If you left your car open at night and said, come and steal me, nobody's stealing that. It really is pathetic. But in its defense, it does have physical buttons for climate control, so I get some points back for that. But one thing I don't get though is that it seems when you want a city car, you're always penalised in terms of interior quality. Name me an interior in a city car that's really high quality and well finished and makes you feel like you're in a luxury car experience, but in a small package. Like, I don't get why it's assumed that just because you want a small car automatically means you want a really cheap car. It's not necessarily the case, I don't think, but let me know in the comments if you disagree. But yeah, definitely the i10, they were definitely going for maximum cheapness here. And for the type of car it is, in terms of, you know, it's a mainstream car, it's not a luxury brand, and the fact that the price point it's at, that doesn't bother me. But it has to be said that the materials and the general fit and finish around the car, it's reasonably well robust and doesn't, like, I didn't feel like the build quality was terrible, but it's just massively cheap plastics all around the place. And yeah, there was absolutely expense spared. The seats though were another reason why I would definitely say go up the range, because you do get better seats. They were just rubbish. I mean, they had decent adjustment, manual adjustment, but just basic cloth seats or fabric, and no side support, no lumbar support. And yeah, you wouldn't want to do long journeys in these, I don't think. So I think you would get out the other end feeling pretty crap. But thankfully it's a city car, so the chances are you're rarely going to ever go much of a long distance in them. But they really were not particularly good seats, and there was no rake and reach adjustment whatsoever for the steering wheel. But the quality on the steering wheel wasn't too bad. I felt like it was more like what I would expect from a Hyundai in terms of the quality of the steering wheel. Felt quite nice to hold. The buttons were quite well damped, so there was no issues there. But the practicality wasn't too bad. I thought there wasn't a lot of cubbies around the car, but there was decent sized door bins, and you'll get a bottle in those, which is just as well, because the cup holders were absolutely terrible. Just really shallow, basic, just like they punch a hole in the plastic, and there's no adaptability. So if you don't have the right size of bottle or cup or whatever, it's going to rattle about and potentially spill everywhere. So they're rubbish. But the glove box is half decent size as well. So yeah, kind of mixed really. But as I was saying, if you go up the range, you get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and that's really important because you don't get sat nav as standard. That's an option. But that's good because you don't really need it then. However, in the base spec, obviously the screen's too small for that to ever be possible anyway. So yeah, all you've got is a 12 volt and a USB port. So you could still plug your phone in and somehow connect your tunes to it. But if you did, the sound you're going to get back isn't going to be good, because I tested out the speakers and they were ding. But the cockpit dials are all right. You've got a couple of analog dials with an LCD in the middle with a bit of information that you can flick about with. But yeah, the overall kind of techie interface in this base spec really is massively the reason why you don't want to buy this particular spec, because it just makes the car seem ancient. But the back seats were a surprise. I thought they were really quite spacious, to be honest. A couple of kids will be absolutely fine back there for long journeys. The seats are just as rubbish and cheap as the front, obviously. But yeah, plenty of space for a couple of kids. You've got ISOFIX in there, 2 seats, although it's a zip to get into the thing. I think that could be quite an annoying solution. I don't know why they don't just like put the bar in between the 2 bits of the seat. Much easier and probably easier to design. But yeah, you've got ISOFIX at least. Pretty big door bins, although they're really plasticky. And then there's a little cubby in the middle at the bottom, but there's no like air conditioning or anything back there. But yeah, visibility around the back I thought was all right. So yeah, I think back seat space, pretty good for this size of car. But the boot, it's not the biggest. However, it's not expected to be. 252 litres with the seats up. But you can get a partition to level it up a bit, so you don't have a massive load lip, and you don't then have a lip when you put the seats down, which is really quite pronounced. So if you were to throw things long ways in there as it stands, it really would not be great for that. But it's a bit smaller than its rivals like the Dacia Sandero or the Kia Picanto. But unless you're somebody who goes to Costco and buys half the shop a lot, you'll get your weekly shop in there. You know, you go to Tesco, stick your bags in there, it'll fit that. But if this is a car you need to do long family hauls in a lot and carry suitcases, this ain't the car. Okay, so I've obviously explained that the infotainment system in this base spec is a massive turd. However, that is not the thing that really made me hate this car that much and made me feel like I was getting diddled by Hyundai. It was the performance. So, let me explain to you the engines. Now, I'll start with the ones up the range, so I can build up some suspense here. But you can get an 84 brake horsepower, 1.2 litre 4-cylinder petrol, naturally aspirated. And you can also get a 100 horsepower in the N-line, 1 litre turbo petrol, and that is only available manual. In the mid-range, and with that 84 brake horsepower one, you can get an automatic, but in the base spec, no automatics allowed. However, this car, the one I got as my courtesy car, has a 1 litre 3-cylinder engine, naturally aspirated, and it produces, I hope you're sitting down for this, 67 brake horsepower. What is that all about? So I'm out on the road in this thing and the engine is gruff as, but to be fair, that is definitely something Hyundai suck at across the range. Even in my Santa Fe, really, really gruff engine. And to be honest, that was a thing I could hear that ruined the refinement. I didn't feel like otherwise, it felt like it was that noisy a cabin, but that engine was really like... But the thing is, with having that little amount of power, you are changing gears a lot. And it wouldn't be so bad if the 5-speed manual was actually a little bit more of a pleasure to use, but it wasn't. It was really quite like, I didn't really like it. But it was more the fact that the clutch bite was so high, it just made it all a much more jerky experience, especially when you're around town. It was just like all over the place. But yeah, you were dropping to, well, I was dropping to like second gear quite a bit to get up a hill. This thing needed revved really hard to do anything. And yeah, it was returning 44 miles per gallon according to the trip meter. And that's probably long term because I can't imagine other people using this as a courtesy car would have bothered to change that. So yeah, it's reasonably good fuel economy. But when you consider how little performance is on tap, actually I'm not sure it really is that good. But this thing was just pathetically slow. And honestly, I would say actually kind of unsafe. Like, you probably should have, like you know, you get ULEZ zones, you should have zones where you're not allowed to drive cars like that because they're just too slow. If you took that on the motorway, you'd be getting laughed at by absolutely everybody. It would be ready to explode if it was at motorway speeds. Absolutely pathetic. And then there was the handling, which I didn't really get to try out much of. And like I say, you don't really want to take a car like that onto a country road because it's just going to get overtaken by everything. And yeah, going around some roundabouts with a bit of vigor, I was like, yeah, didn't go, oh wow, this is like a go-kart, it's really sticking to the road. Didn't really feel particularly composed. I think if you went up the range, the N line might be better because it'll have bigger wheels, it'll have be set up maybe stiffer, so it probably will ride a bit better. But I just didn't find there was anything particularly exciting to tell you about the handling side of things. The steering was all right. Wasn't terrible, it was light enough, and around town that's really what you want. But yeah, you just don't want to take this car anywhere near a country road because it is not going to be a particularly pleasurable experience with that lack of performance. Then other things like visibility, pretty good around the car I thought. Big windows, not big pillars. Overall thought that was decent, and yeah, just the refinement side of things would have been all right if it wasn't for the really gruff engine. The suspension wasn't too bad though, although it did have pretty thick walled tyres and it's a really light little car. I wouldn't expect it to be massively firm and crashing over bumps, but overall I found like going around town, yeah, it was bouncing about a little bit, but overall I didn't feel like it was an uncomfortable ride. I just can't believe Hyundai gave me a car with that low performance. It was almost like it was like a booby prize because I didn't buy my car from them. And when I got back and I handed it back, they were like, oh, how's the courtesy car? I'm like, is she taking the piss? It wasn't great, to be honest. You know, it was a bit underpowered, a bit basic. Thought you might give me something a bit better. She's like, oh, which one did you have? I'm like, well, I had the i10. Is that all you've got? She's like, oh, well, we've got two. We've got an N-line one and we've got the base spec one. Oh yeah, it was definitely the base spec. She literally laughed when I said that. So yeah, guess what? The guy who bought his car from Hyundai, Aberdeen, I'm pretty sure they gave him the N-line. And I actually made a joke about that and she didn't really deny it either. That's just the way it is, you know, it's like, I'm sure all dealers do that sort of thing. You don't get the gold standard service if you don't buy your car from that garage. And if they've got two courtesy cars to give out, guess who's getting the good one? But yeah, really, I thought that that was just a car that should just not exist at all. They should start the range at SE Connect, and that's it. I can't imagine many people are ever going to buy this base spec, but if you were considering it, don't. But yeah, it was an experience, at least having the car. It was quite amusing actually. But I hope you found the video informative and enjoyable. If you did, please leave me a like and drop me a comment with your thoughts on it. And don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more content from Car Babble. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.